really good to be here. I've been trying to get here for a couple of years. Couldn't afford the ticket because I was a startup before, but now since I'm speaking, it was a free. So thank you so much for your generosity. My name is Brackeen, as mentioned, CEO of Kairos. We're a facial recognition company based in Miami, Florida. We have traditionally done facial recognition for enterprise customers versus governments. So over 100 of the top Fortune 1000, all the major retailers, ad agencies, you name it, we help them with things like pure facial recognition, finding out who somebody is. We could find one person in a billion in about 1/30th of a second, and be about 99.8% sure that person is who we think that they are. Also, historically, I've worked in age, gender, ethnicity, and even human emotion. Our algorithms could even do ethnicity to a level of genealogy. So we're about a 6-year-old company, raised about $8.5 million through traditional venture. And I'm here today to tell you that we are going to stop doing all of that. Today is going to be the very first day that we change our entire business model to be just one-to-one facial recognition, because we are too concerned about things that we've talked about on stage, like algorithmic biases, the stories about Amazon that have been coming out about them helping governments to do things like surveillance. And it's just not why we wake up in the morning. It's not why we work so hard to help other customers and brands to surveil all of us. And so we thought, what a great place to kind of tell that story. Let's step back a little bit. This was a big day for us. September 12, 2017. This was a day, as we all know, that Apple released facial recognition on its flagship iPhone X. We received over 200 enterprise leads on that day. But as you would imagine, it isn't a great day to start a facial recognition company, because as we all know, with AI, you need a lot of data, it needs a lot of training, a lot of tweaking, a lot of time. So if you were to start a facial recognition company on this day, you'd be behind the curve. We actually saw this trend about 6 years prior, and we'd processed last year about 300 million faces. In 2018, we were on schedule to process about 1 billion faces. And so we achieved really great scale doing facial recognition. But that's exactly when we started to notice some of the challenges in facial recognition. One of which was, as we talked about on the 2 panels ago, algorithmic bias. You can imagine how challenging it is to be the CEO of a facial recognition company and the facial recognition can't identify you. It was quite a humbling experience, I can tell you, to stand there with some of my colleagues and everybody had a bounding box but me. And so we realized that one of the biggest challenges in our space, as we talked about again a couple panels ago, is not just the tool itself. It's not TensorFlow that doesn't see Brian, right? It's the training data that doesn't see Brian, as we all know here. And we'd spent a lot of time fixing that, and I think a lot of people in their industry spend a lot of time fixing it, but they only fix it for themselves. They're not fixing it for everybody else. And so what we've decided to do is create a diversity data set and open source that data set so that everyone has a baseline and say, okay, Microsoft, Google, Amazon, if you can't get this right, you shouldn't release it. And we would hope that other people, including people in this room, will think about opening some of their data sets that are very critical for things like biases. So takes us to this kind of could versus should. There's a lot of things we can do here in AI, as we all know, but I ask all of you to ask yourselves, should you be doing certain things? How do we build in some safeguards in these areas? And so after you get all these things right, and you're ready to kind of save the world, guess what? That doesn't make your investors happy, right? So how do you say, great, I've got these clean data sets, everything's going up and to the right, but how do you sell that? And what we found was that doing an ICO really changed everything. I said earlier we raised $8.5 million. Well, we've actually now raised $38.5 million. We did a $30 million ICO, and now we are accountable to the people. We've opened things up. We've actually been able to return a 10x return to our investors this way. And we did something called a security token, which we can get into if you ask me in the hallway, which is equity, not one of these kind of fly-by-night kind of tokens. So Thank you so much. Really good to be here. Let's all be safe. Let's be accountable to each other. Let's be open.